Imagine witnessing an act so horrific, so utterly devoid of humanity, that it shatters your understanding of war. Now imagine being a soldier, ordered to stand by, but choosing instead to turn your weapons on your own men to stop it. This is the untold story of Warrant officer Hugh Thompson Jr., a helicopter pilot in Vietnam whose actions on one brutal day in March 1968 redefined courage. He defied every military instinct to save his enemy. The place was My Lai, a small hamlet within what the Americans called Pinkville, a heavily contested area in Quang Ngai province. Intelligence suggested it was a Viet Cong stronghold. For months, American soldiers had endured brutal guerrilla warfare, booby traps, and hidden enemies. Frustration and anger simmered, boiling over into a dangerous us versus them mentality that blurred the lines between combatants and civilians. On March 16, 1968, Charlie Company of the 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, entered My Lai on a search and destroy mission. Their orders: clear the village. Hugh Thompson, a 24-year-old warrant officer, was flying his OH-23 observation helicopter, call sign Shark 6, with crew Chief Glenn Andreatta and Gunner Lawrence Colburn. Their job was aerial reconnaissance and close air support. As they flew over My Lai, Thompson noticed something deeply disturbing. There was no enemy fire, no resistance, just civilians. And yet, chaos unfolded below. He saw bodies littering the ground, mostly women, children, and old men. It wasn't a firefight aftermath. It was a slaughter. He radioed his ground commanders, asking for clarification. The response was evasive. Thompson's crew, seeing the horror firsthand, couldn't believe what their own eyes were telling them. This wasn't war. It was murder. They spotted a ditch filled with Vietnamese civilians, wounded and crying out. As they watched, American soldiers approached the ditch and began firing into it, executing the survivors. Thompson, sickened, landed his helicopter. He confronted Lieutenant William Calley, the platoon leader, demanding to know what was happening. Calley simply replied that he was just following orders. Thompson marked the ditch with a smoke grenade, a signal for medical evacuation. But as he lifted off, he saw Calley's men continue the slaughter. The smoke, meant for aid, became a marker for more death. His crew, Andreatta and Colburn, were also aghast. Colburn reportedly said, "My God, what's going on?" The moral weight of the situation was crushing them. Then, Thompson spotted a group of about 10 to 15 Vietnamese civilians, women, children, and elderly people, huddled in an earthen bunker, terrified, while American soldiers advanced on them. He knew what was coming: another massacre. At that moment, Hugh Thompson made a decision that would forever define his legacy and challenge the very notion of military obedience. He landed his helicopter directly between the advancing American soldiers and the bunker. He then stepped out, unarmed, and confronted the platoon leader, a Sergeant David Mitchell. Thompson issued an order that no one in that war zone could have anticipated. He told his gunner, Lawrence Colburn, to train his M60 machine gun on the American soldiers. His exact words, as documented in later investigations, were, "If those people start shooting them, you open up on them." It was an order to fire on fellow American troops if they harmed the civilians. This was direct disobedience of the highest order, a profound breach of military protocol. He was risking a court-martial, his career, and potentially his life, to save people considered the enemy. Stunned, the American soldiers halted. Thompson then persuaded the Vietnamese civilians to come out of the bunker, and he called in 2 Chinook helicopters to evacuate them to safety. He wasn't done. As he lifted off, his crew chief, Glenn Andreatta, spotted movement in the ditch of bodies. Against all odds, a small child was still alive, buried under the dead. Thompson landed again, and Andreatta descended into the gruesome ditch, pulling out the terrified child. That child, too, was evacuated to a nearby hospital, a tiny beacon of life amidst utter devastation. Hugh Thompson and his crew had directly intervened in one of the darkest chapters of the Vietnam War. They had saved at least 11 lives that day, possibly more, at immense personal risk. Upon returning to base, Thompson immediately reported the atrocities to his commanding officers. But the military, desperate to avoid scandal, attempted to cover up the massacre. Thompson faced immense pressure and hostility. He was even investigated for flying too low and for allegedly threatening American soldiers. Some in the military even called for him to be court-martialed for his actions. For years, his acts of heroism went largely unrecognized, overshadowed by the horrific details of My Lai that eventually broke to the public in November 1969, thanks to journalist Seymour Hersh. The widespread belief for years was that My Lai was a singular, isolated incident of a few bad apples. But what many historians now confirm is that systemic failures, intense pressure, and a culture of dehumanization made such atrocities tragically possible. The pressure on soldiers in Vietnam was immense, with body count often seen as the measure of success, and distinguishing Viet Cong from civilians proving incredibly difficult. This created a fertile ground for tragedy. It wasn't until 30 years later, in 1998, that Hugh Thompson Jr., along with his crew members Lawrence Colburn and posthumously Glenn Andreatta, finally received the Soldier's Medal for their heroism. The citation lauded their heroism above and beyond the call of duty, for confronting their own countrymen to prevent further slaughter. It was a powerful, if delayed, acknowledgement of their moral courage. But what we don't fully know is the true extent of official knowledge within the chain of command that day. How many high-ranking officers were aware of the unfolding massacre in real time and chose not to intervene? Historians like Michael Bilton and Kevin Sim in their book, The My Lai Massacre, an American tragedy, document the immediate reports Thompson made, yet the cover-up persisted for months. Thompson's actions, however, weren't just about saving lives that day. They were a profound statement about the individual's moral responsibility, even in the most dehumanizing of circumstances. He showed that even when war demands the unthinkable, there remains a line, a fundamental human decency that some refuse to cross. It's a lesson that transcends any conflict. Thompson himself, in a 1989 PBS Frontline interview, reflected on his decision, stating simply, "I couldn't stand by and watch that happen." His conscience was his ultimate commander. His story reminds us that heroism isn't always about charging into enemy fire, but sometimes about standing against your own for what is right. It's about preserving humanity when all around you is lost. The legacy of My Lai is complicated, a stain on American military history. But within that darkness, the actions of Hugh Thompson Jr. shine as a beacon of light, a stark reminder of individual agency. His courage wasn't just physical, it was moral. It was the courage to confront evil, not just on the battlefield, but within his own ranks. A rare and precious quality. The impact of Thompson's intervention extended beyond the immediate lives saved. It eventually forced a reckoning within the military and the American public about the conduct of the war. His actions, though initially suppressed, ultimately contributed to a broader awareness of war crimes and the importance of ethical conduct, even in the most brutal environments. The My Lai Massacre remains a painful memory, but Hugh Thompson's story offers a glimmer of hope, proving that even in the darkest hours, individual conscience can prevail. It's a powerful lesson, not just for soldiers, but for all of us. When faced with injustice, what will we do? Where we draw our line? The story of Hugh Thompson Jr. isn't just a tale from military history. It's a profound exploration of human nature, a testament to the enduring power of empathy and courage in the face of unimaginable horror. His actions speak volumes about the true meaning of honor, far beyond medals and commendations. It's the honor of upholding one's moral compass, even when it means standing alone against the tide. He showed us that true bravery often lies not in fighting the enemy, but in fighting the darkness that can consume us all, even from within. His story is a vital reminder that even in the most brutal conflicts, individual acts of compassion can carve out moments of profound humanity, forever altering the narrative of war. The ripple effect of his defiance against direct orders saved lives, but more importantly, it saved a piece of humanity in a moment when it was most desperately needed. Hugh Thompson Jr. was more than a soldier. He was a moral compass in chaos, an ordinary man who performed an extraordinary act of conscience. His legacy is a powerful testament to the idea that even amidst the horrors of war, the human spirit's capacity for compassion can shine through, offering a timeless lesson for us all.